He was the loudest man in the room, the one pacing the floor, pointing fingers, shouting deadlines. Every time the camera cut to chaos, Duane Mayer was at the center of it. A towering figure with a scowl, a clipboard, and a demand for perfection that rarely, if ever, seemed satisfied. To millions of viewers watching American Hot Rod, Duane wasn't just a foreman. He was a villain. Episodes opened with tension and closed with confrontations. Employees walked out mid-build. Tools were slammed on benches. Deadlines were blown. And through it all, Duane yelled. To some, he was the shop tyrant. To others, he was Boyd Coddington's enforcer, doing the dirty work so the legend could stay above the fray. But what if that narrative was never quite accurate? What if the man we saw unraveling on screen was less of a monster and more of a man crumbling under impossible expectations? Because while the audience saw fury, missed deadlines, and screaming matches, they didn't see what happened before the cameras rolled. They didn't see producers pushing for drama, staging scenes, and turning real men into exaggerated roles for ratings. And they didn't see what it cost Duane Mayer to hold that shop together when no one else would. He didn't ask to be on TV. He didn't want to be famous. He was a builder, a foreman, a guy who showed up every day because he believed in the work, the craft, and the name on the wall, Boyd Coddington. This is the story of a man caught in the spotlight, asked to play a part he never auditioned for. A man who became one of automotive television's most hated figures, and then disappeared without a word. Was Duane Mayer wirklich der Bösewicht, den wir alle erinnern? Or was he simply the scapegoat in a made-for-TV pressure cooker? The truth, as always, is buried beneath the edits, and it's time we uncovered it. Long before the cameras and controversy, Duane Mayer was just another car guy with grease under his nails and a hunger to build something real. Born and raised in Wisconsin, Duane grew up around hardworking, blue-collar people who valued craftsmanship over conversation. He wasn't raised for the spotlight. He was raised for the shop. From a young age, he had a knack for mechanical problem-solving. While his peers spent weekends partying, Duane was in garages, tinkering with engines, rebuilding transmissions, learning the fundamentals of hot rod culture, the only way that mattered, hands-on. He didn't have formal training in television. What he had was grit, repetition, and respect for the process. That reputation eventually carried him across state lines. In the 1990s, Duane made his way to California, the mecca of custom car culture, and found himself drawn to one name in particular, Boyd Coddington. Boyd was already a legend, a pioneer in custom design. His shop wasn't just a workplace, it was an institution, and Duane wanted in. Through persistence and skill, he proved himself. He wasn't flashy, he wasn't smooth-talking, but he was relentless. In time, Boyd saw that and made Duane his shop foreman, the man responsible for ensuring that vision became reality. In the early days, Duane was known for his attention to detail, his high standards, and his absolute loyalty to Boyd. If a part wasn't right, it didn't go on the car. If a builder cut corners, they got corrected. His role wasn't to make friends. His role was to make hot rods and make them great. But when the cameras rolled years later, none of that context made it in. The Duane the world saw wasn't the builder who had earned his stripes. He was edited into something else entirely. When American Hot Rod premiered in 2004, it changed everything. For the shop, for Boyd's brand, and especially for Duane Mayer. The Discovery Channel's production team had one goal: turn a working custom car shop into a high-octane TV show. The formula? Tight deadlines, big personalities, and maximum drama. Duane didn't volunteer for the role. He didn't seek the camera, but as the shop foreman, his every move was suddenly under the microscope and under the thumb of producers who needed friction to keep viewers glued to the screen. It wasn't long before the workplace started to morph. Build timelines that once took months were now condensed into weeks or even days to fit shooting schedules. Scenes were reshot. Confrontations were exaggerated, or in some cases, outright staged. What had once been a chaotic but functional garage became a pressure cooker built for prime time. And at the center of it was Duane, tasked with keeping real cars on schedule in a fake TV environment. Producers loved him. He gave them exactly what they needed. He barked orders. He called out laziness. He pushed for excellence. And when things fell apart, which they often did, he became the face of accountability. But behind the scenes, it was different. Duane wasn't trying to be famous. He was trying to preserve the integrity of Boyd's shop, now crumbling under the weight of celebrity. The more the cameras pushed for meltdowns, the more Duane hardened, until yelling became the default language of survival. The audience saw explosions. What they didn't see was Duane trying to hold the line, while everything real about the shop got replaced with performance. Week after week, the image sharpened. Duane Mayer, red-faced, furious, slamming doors and chewing out employees on national television, firing people mid-project, demanding perfection at any cost. For casual viewers, he wasn't just a tough boss. He was the villain of the show. Clips of his most intense moments went viral on early YouTube. Forums filled with posts labeling him TV's most hated foreman. Memes circulated painting him as the guy no one wanted to work for. He became a symbol of everything people hated about toxic work environments, even if the real context never made it past the edit bay. But if you ask the people who actually worked with him, the answer wasn't so simple. Some would admit, yes, Duane could be harsh. He had no patience for slackers. He didn't sugarcoat. He wasn't the type to give second chances. Others, though, described him as deeply committed, brutally fair, and unwaveringly loyal to Boyd and the quality of the builds. He was a man trying to maintain standards while cameras encouraged chaos. Many crew members later admitted the show's producers loved pushing buttons, stirring up conflict, setting up scenarios where failure was likely, just to get the on-screen fallout. And it always came back to Duane. He became the perfect lightning rod, intimidating, uncompromising, and always under pressure. What the world saw was rage. What they didn't see was a man trapped between two conflicting roles, reality star and real-life foreman. And slowly, that double life began to wear him down. By the time American Hot Rod reached its later seasons, something had changed in Duane Mayer, and it was visible to anyone paying close attention. The shouting didn't stop, but the spark behind it began to fade. The fierce, commanding energy that had once filled the shop now came with something heavier: resentment, exhaustion, and disillusionment. The man who once fought for perfection now seemed like he was just fighting to survive another episode. Behind the camera, Duane was becoming more isolated. Crew members rotated in and out. Many of them didn't last long. And while some blamed Duane's management style, others recognized what was really happening. He was carrying the entire burden of a production that demanded constant conflict, impossible deadlines, and high-stakes delivery. He didn't write the rules, but he had to enforce them. Even when they didn't make sense, even when they hurt the team, even when they broke him. Off-screen, friends say he became guarded, distant. The joy of building, what brought him into the industry in the first place, was buried under stress, noise, and pressure. As more people tuned in each week to judge him, Duane had fewer people around him he could trust. And perhaps the cruelest part? He wasn't even being paid like a star. He was still a foreman, still clocking hours, still getting his hands dirty every day. The world saw a man yelling, but what they didn't see was a man being crushed, bit by bit, by the role he never wanted to play. To understand Duane Mayer's actions, you have to understand his loyalty to one man, Boyd Coddington. Boyd was more than just a boss. He was a legend, a mentor, and for Duane, a symbol of everything he believed about craftsmanship, precision, and discipline. But Boyd wasn't always easy. He was demanding, impatient, and when the cameras were rolling, he often leaned on Duane to be the one who got his hands dirty. If Boyd didn't want to deliver bad news, Duane did it. If someone needed to be cut, Duane was the executioner. And while Boyd stayed cool and collected for the camera, Duane became the face of enforcement. Even when he didn't agree with the decisions, Duane carried them out. Because in his mind, that's what loyalty looked like. That's what the job required. But as Boyd's health declined in the later years, that responsibility grew heavier. Duane wasn't just managing projects, he was managing morale, pacing, staff, and production, all while trying to hold together a shop that was slowly unraveling under public scrutiny and personal loss. When Boyd passed away in 2008, the show was already over, but the damage lingered. Without the man he'd followed for years, Duane seemed to lose not just a leader, but a sense of purpose. The cameras were gone, the crews were scattered, and the shop, the one he had bled for, no longer needed him. And just like that, Duane Mayer disappeared from television. No press tour, no fanfare, just gone. Loyalty made him the enforcer. But when the empire collapsed, there was no one left to defend. After Boyd's death and the end of American Hot Rod, Duane Mayer stepped away from the public eye. For years, he kept a low profile. No social media presence, no public appearances, no effort to capitalize on his TV fame. It was as if he'd vanished. Then, in 2016, his name surfaced again, and not for the reasons anyone hoped. Duane was arrested for a DUI in Huntington Beach after crashing a custom hot rod. The incident made local headlines and quickly made its way into the car forums. Photos of the wrecked car and his mugshot began circulating online. And just like that, his name was reduced to a tabloid headline. No interviews followed, no statement, no attempt to explain. For fans of the show, it was a painful punctuation mark on an already complex story. For his critics, it was seen as confirmation. The angry guy on TV had finally lost control. But for those who knew the full arc, the years of pressure, the loss of Boyd, the absence of closure, it felt more like a man who had been worn down by the very system that once made him famous. It wasn't a scandal. It was a symptom. And yet, even in disgrace, Duane didn't try to reclaim his narrative. He faded back into silence, leaving behind a legacy defined by edits he never controlled and a reputation built on moments stripped of context. He started as a builder. He became a foreman, then a villain, then a headline. But the question still remains. Was that who he really was? Or just who we were told to see? If you only ever watched American Hot Rod, you saw Duane Mayer as one thing: the hard-nosed foreman who screamed, fired people, and seemingly took pleasure in tearing down his crew. But that's the thing about reality TV. It's rarely real. And when it came to Duane, it's very possible we never saw the full man at all. Reality producers follow a blueprint. Every story needs a hero, a conflict, and most of all, a villain. Someone the audience can project their frustration onto. Someone whose outbursts become meme-worthy. Someone who guarantees drama, week after week. Duane Mayer fit that mold too well. He was intense. He didn't smile much. He wasn't interested in charming the cameras. He was blunt, critical, and had zero tolerance for mistakes. In real life, those traits might make you respected, or at least understood. But through the lens of reality TV, those traits were magnified, stripped of nuance, and shaped into a caricature of rage. Crew members and insiders have since come forward saying much of what was aired was manipulated. Arguments were staged. Moments were taken out of context. In some cases, entire character arcs were fabricated to serve a plot line. And Duane? He never played along. He didn't fake scenes. He didn't break character, because he never knew he was supposed to be in one. He wasn't trying to be a villain. He was just trying to get the job done. The tragedy is that the audience never saw the man behind the role. They never saw the late nights he stayed at the shop after cameras left. They never saw him mentoring younger builders. They didn't see the quiet moments, just the explosions. What they watched was a performance they were told was real. And Duane? He was written in as the antagonist, without ever getting the script. The Duane Mayer that exists today isn't a meme. He's not a viral clip. He's not the angry foreman frozen in time by a camera crew. He's a man, older now, quieter, and by all accounts, finally out of the spotlight he never wanted. There's no official statement, no comeback tour, no autobiography. Duane simply walked away. And that's telling. Most reality TV personalities use their exposure as a stepping stone, launching merch, YouTube channels, personal brands. But Duane, he didn't chase fans. He didn't sell the drama. He just vanished. Because for him, none of it was ever about fame. He was, at his core, a builder. Someone who believed in structure, rules, and quality work. Someone who found himself trapped in a show designed for destruction, then blamed for the chaos he tried to contain. Those who worked closely with him describe a different man, fiercely loyal, technically gifted, and passionate about the trade. Not warm and fuzzy, no, but principled. The kind of person you'd want running your garage if things went sideways. It's easy to forget that when the yelling stops and the lights fade, these so-called characters go home. They carry the weight of perception with them. And for Duane, that perception became a prison. What we missed was the man beneath the armor, a craftsman, a loyalist, a foreman who gave everything to his shop and left with nothing but silence in return. The edit made him infamous. But the truth? It never got aired. So who was Duane Mayer? A villain, if you believe the TV version. A victim, if you listen to the crew. But maybe the most honest answer is this. He was human. Flawed. Fierce. Overwhelmed. Dedicated. Angry. Loyal. He was a man thrown into a spotlight he didn't ask for, forced to wear a role he didn't write, judged by millions who never knew his story. And when it all became too much, when Boyd was gone, the cameras shut down, and the public turned away, Duane did the only thing he knew how to do. He disappeared quietly. He didn't issue a statement. He didn't chase redemption. He just went back to the shadows, likely back to a shop, where the only things that mattered were steel, sweat, and silence. And maybe that's all he ever wanted. In the end, Duane Mayer's story isn't a cautionary tale about being mean on TV. It's a cautionary tale about what happens when real people get packaged as entertainment, when skilled craftsmen are reduced to plot devices, and when loyalty is mistaken for cruelty. He yelled because he cared. He cracked because the weight was real. Not a villain, not a victim, just a man who built cars and tried to hold it all together when the cameras came crashing in.